Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so today we're going to be creating a game just like Doodle Jump, but I just kind of switched out the Doodle Jump character for Megaman. So let's get right into it. This is what it's going to look like when it's finished. You'll have Megaman down here. He can move from left to right and he can jump. You have the platforms and you have a high score up here. So if we jump, we can see as we jump, the screen moves up and the high score keeps going, and you can basically play until you fall. Let's see, let me just see if I can fall real quick. And then you get a pop-up that says game over. You probably can't see it because I'm only recording my tab, but that's fine. And so let's get right into it. And we'll remove all of the code and start over from scratch. So now we have a blank canvas. So first thing, if you've seen my old videos, we like to start with is the variables. So we have some constants that we're going to need. First thing is Megaman himself. And Megaman is just going to be a web image. And a web image is just, well, that's exactly what it says, a web image. So we'll grab this image from the web, just a picture of Megaman with no background. And then we'll move on to the gravity constant, which is just going to be the speed that Megaman falls down at. And then we'll have some more stuff related to speed, like Y move velocity, which is how fast he moves upwards. And to move upwards, you need a negative Y value, so we'll go with negative 15. And then we'll have const X move velocity, and that's just going to be 15, and that's going to be for moving left and right. And then we'll have const floor underscore Y, which is just going to be the position the floor is at, the Y position of the floor. But the Y position of the floor is the same as the height of the canvas. So you might see me use it as the height sometimes. Next one we'll have is speeds. Now these are the speeds that will kind of change as Megaman gets faster and slower. So we have let up velocity. Now the up velocity is just how fast he's moving up or down. And that's going to be equal to 0 at the beginning because he's not moving at all. We have a left velocity, not all capital. That's also 0, that's how fast he's moving to the left. And then we have right velocity, which is how fast he's moving to the right. Next up, we have some sizes. First things first, we'll need a size for Megaman himself. So Megaman underscore size, we'll set that to 100 and we'll make that his width and his height. And then we'll have platform width and platform height. And the platform width is going to be equal to 100 and the platform height is going to be equal to about 15. And then we'll have the platform spacing, which is just how far the platforms are from each other, how far apart. And then we'll use 85 for that. And then we'll have kind of like the other variables, things like can die, which is just a variable to determine if he can fall right now or if we should be able to hit the ground. Like at the beginning, we want to hit the ground or still be on the ground if we jump and don't hit a platform at all. But after we start, once we jump, we want to be able to die or fall off the map. So we'll set this to false at the beginning. Then we'll have let current score, which is just exactly what it says, the current score. And then we'll have let platforms, which will be an empty array that we'll fill with rectangle objects, and those will be our platforms. Then we'll have let high score. Now it'll be the highest score we scored so far, so that'll be 0 at the beginning. So highest score is our high score, current score is the score we have on this go around. And then we have let high score text. And high score text is just going to be the actual text object. So this is the value we're going to pass that text object, and this is going to be the text object. And then after that, we'll say let is gravity on. And this is kind of like can die, and it'll start off as false. But once we start jumping, we'll turn gravity on. So let's get into it. Let's start off with function start. And inside of start, we'll call set size, which will just allow us to determine the size of our canvas. We want to keep the width the same, so we'll use get width. And then we can say we want 700 for the height, which is why we use 700 up here. Or if we wanted to, we could just pass this variable. And now we have a little bit more height in the canvas so we can see him as he jumps up and down. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to spawn Megaman. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that function. Function spawn Megaman. And this is just going to put Megaman on the canvas for us. So we'll say Megaman.setSize to the variable we created up here, Megaman size. So that's his width, and then that's his height. And then we'll say Megaman.setPosition. And we want him to start off about here, directly in the middle, but on the floor. So to get him directly in the middle, we're going to say get width divided by 2 minus Megaman size divided by 2. And the reason we need to do that, well, I'll explain that a little bit once we get something on the screen. And then we'll say floor underscore y minus Megaman underscore size. And then we'll say add Megaman. So now we see he's perfectly centered. That's what I was going to explain this, so let me go back. The reason we need to divide this width by 2 is so we can get in the middle. Like let's say the width was 100, exactly half of that would be 50, which will put us directly in the middle. But then why do we need this part? Well, let's remove it and see. As we can see, the X and Y values of this image right here is the top left coordinates of the X and Y of this image. The X and Y coordinates are the top left. So to get the precise middle, we have to take that X coordinate and subtract half of the width of the image. So that's why we have that, and that's why we have to also subtract Megaman size, because otherwise it would place him right at the bottom. So his head is right underneath, but if we subtract the size, he's perfectly placed. So now that we have our character, we can move on to our next function. Okay, so next we're going to want to create the platforms. So we'll have a function called makePlatforms. Okay, so now we'll create the function makePlatforms. And inside of it, we're going to have a loop because we want to make all the platforms at once. So we'll say for var I equals 0, I less than, we'll say 9 based off the spacing that we have, and then I plus plus. And then we can create these rectangles. So const rectangle equals new rectangle. And every time you create a new rectangle, you have to give it a width and a height. So we already have that. We have our platform width, and we have our platform height. And now we can say rectangle and give it a color by saying dot set color. You can give it whatever color you want. I'll use color dot, let's try red. And then we'll say rectangle dot set position to, well, this is going to be interesting. So we want to position these rectangles randomly. So we can do that by using a function called randomizer.nextInt, which just gives us a random integer between two numbers. So we want something random between 0 and the width of the screen minus the width of the platforms. So we don't ever want it to be completely off the screen, so we have to subtract the platform width. And then that's just the X value, and then the Y value, we want that to be platform spacing. That way, if it's a 0, then we want it to be at the 0, and if we want 1, we want this to be at 1 times 85, that's 85, and then 2 times 85, and so on and so forth. And now we can add each rectangle, and then we want to push this into our platforms object so that we have access to it later. And now we have our platforms. But this one's a little low, so let's actually minus 50 so that it's a little bit higher. Yeah, there we go. All right, now we'll move on to our next function. Okay, so our next function is going to be set high score, which is just going to create that high score object we saw in the top left. So we're going to say function, and actually for this function we're going to want an input, and our input is going to be whatever the new score is. And we're going to say if there is an old high score, let's remove it. If not, then it will just remove nothing, so it's fine to put it here. We can say remove the old high score text, and then we'll say high hex is equal to new text object. And this new text object has the new score value. And then we can say high score text dot set position. We want it to be in the top left, so we know the coordinates of the top left are 0, 0, so we can just say 25, 25 to get a little bit of space for it to show, which will be like about here. And then we can say add high score text. And let's run that, and invalid value. Okay, so let's see, where's our error at? We said high score. The problem is we didn't give it a value here. So let's say it starts off at 0. There we go. Now we have a high score there. Now I won't change anything yet, but we'll get to that later. So let's move on to the next function. Okay, so the next thing we're going to have is our movement handlers. We need to be able to handle moving left, moving right, and jumping. So we'll start with jumping. We'll say key down method is equal to key event handler, and then we'll create that function. And key event handler will just be a function that handles anytime a user presses a key. So we'll say if e.keycode equals keyboard.up, or they press the up key, and Megaman Y, or the Y position of Megaman, which we can create a variable for that real quick. Megaman Y equals to Megaman, the object dot get Y, which will give us the Y value of him at any time. And we'll say that. And Megaman Y is equal to floor Y minus Megaman size. So if the user presses up, and if this is true, that means Megaman is directly on the floor. We only want him to jump if he's on the floor, otherwise he'll just automatically jump when he hits a platform. And so if this is true, we'll say up velocity equals y underscore move underscore velocity, which is how fast he moves up, or jump. And then we'll also turn gravity on so that he doesn't just keep flying up forever. Okay, so for the jump to work, we need set timer, and we're gonna say move up, and then we're gonna say 20 milliseconds. So this move up function runs every 20 milliseconds. And then we can define move up. And inside of move up, we're gonna say if gravity is not on, or not is gravity on, then we don't want to do anything, right? But if gravity is on, we want to say up velocity plus equals gravity. Then we want to say Megaman dot move 0, comma up velocity and that alone should allow us to jump. So let's see, Megaman's not defined right because we spelled it wrong. Let's fix that. Now we can jump. We'll handle him falling off the map in a second, but before we do that, let's move on to the left and right functions. So same thing as up, we need set timer, move left, have that run every 20 milliseconds. And then we need the same thing for move right. And then we also need to add a key event handler to even start. We'll say if e.keycode equals keyboard dot left. Then we want to say left velocity equals x underscore move underscore velocity. But actually to move left, we need a negative x velocity. And then to move right, we need a positive x velocity. So copy that. And then keyboard.right, actually it should be all caps. And then that should be positive, and this should say right. And now right and left should work as well. Well, we need to actually create those functions. Okay, so function move left. We'll just say left velocity plus equals gravity. And then if left velocity is greater than 0, then we no longer want him to move left. So we'll just stop. And then we'll say Megaman dot move. And we'll do the same thing for move right, except it'll be a little bit reversed. So move right, instead of left velocity, we'll use right velocity. Same thing here, right velocity. This should flip to left, this should flip to minus. And this should flip to right. And now we can see that we actually made one mistake. Let's look for that before we go into the explanation. Okay, so we just needed to set those equals to 0. So quick explanation, kind of just how we did move up. We're using gravity to slow his movement as he moves left, and gravity to slow his movement as he moves right. So we have a right velocity once we move over to the right, but then we slow it down every 20 milliseconds. So it happens pretty seamlessly until he eventually gets to 0 or less than 0. And at that point, he should stop moving. Okay, so now that we have jump and move left working, we need to check platform collision. Now the way we do that is we'll put this inside of the move up function, because this move up function runs every 20 milliseconds. So every 20 milliseconds, we'll check to see, is he hitting a platform? So we'll put check platform collision inside of here. And then we'll create the function check platform collision. And this function will just, first thing we'll have to do is loop through all the platforms. So we'll say for I equals 0. While I is less than platforms dot length I plus plus, and then we'll create a variable called platform, which is just equal to platforms I, so we don't have to keep repeating platforms I. And now we'll do our checks. First check, well really there's going to be one check, and it's going to check everything all together. It's going to be is touching. And this will just be a Boolean that checks for everything that we need to know. So first thing we need to know is the Y value of Megaman. Is he lower than or equal to the platform? So we want to say lower than or equal to instead of equal to, because sometimes with this 20 millisecond interval, we can kind of just miss the platform just a little bit, and you don't want that to ruin the whole experience. So we'll say Megaman.getY plus Megaman underscore size. If that altogether is greater than or equal to platform.getY, then we know that his feet are on a platform, because Megaman.getY would be his head plus Megaman size, which moves us down to his feet, greater than or equal to platforms Y, which would be the top of the platform. So once again, we use greater than or equal to make sure that even if it's slightly off, it still works. So these are the feet. Now we need to check to make sure the X value is within the platform's boundaries. So we'll say Megaman X plus Megaman, well, even before then, we'll just say Megaman.getX is less than or equal to platform.getX plus platform with, actually, to make this a little simpler, let's just go left and right. So Megaman.getX greater than or equal to platform.getX. So that means he's to the right of the left side of the platform. And Megaman.getX plus Megaman size is less than or equal to platform.getX plus platform width. So that means he's to the left of the right side of the platform. And let's make this a little more readable. Fix our spelling, fix our capitalization. And we actually need one more check in here. And that's to make sure that he's not all the way below the platform, because then that might be a different platform. So we'll say Megaman.getY plus Megaman underscore size less than or equal to platform underscore height. So what does this do? Let's just use comments to make it even clearer. This first line checks to see, I'll use MM for short, Megaman is on top of platform. And then this one checks to see Megaman is not underneath bottom of platform. And then this one checks to see Megaman is to the right of the left edge of platform. And this last one says that Megaman is to the left of right edge of platform. So we need all four of these checks to make sure that he's on or touching a platform. And then if all of these things are true, now we can force him to jump again. So if is touching platform, should be spaced out. Then same way we jumped before, we just set the up velocity to Y move velocity. And we should see him jump. So we have an error in here. Megaman.get is not a function. That means I probably just forgot to say get X or get Y somewhere here. I forgot to say Megaman.get Y. So we're still missing one piece, and let's see, what are we missing here? Okay, so actually I think I have these a little backwards. So this should be Megaman.getX plus size. And this one should just be regular Megaman.getX. And then let's try that. Okay, now it's working, but he just keeps jumping up. So we need to add a check to see only jump again if he's falling as well. So let's say const is falling. And this is if up velocity is greater than 0, that means he's coming back downwards, or he's no longer moving upwards. Unexpected identifier. Oh, const. Okay, now the jump is working, but as we can see, if he gets to the top, then he just kind of jumps off the screen, so we need to make the screen scroll. So that'll be our next function. Okay, so to get the screen to scroll, we'll add another check inside of this move up function, and it will just say if dot get y is less than floor underscore y divided by 2. This just meaning that he's higher than this midpoint, so he's somewhere up here. So let's add a comment here. Just says move screen if over halfway up. And then to get them to actually move, we'll create a function called scroll screen. And inside of the scroll screen function, we don't actually have a way to scroll the actual screen in Canvas, but what we can do is move these platforms up so that it simulates, or actually down, move these platforms down so that it simulates the screen moving. So how can we do that? We can do that by looping through the platforms again. For bar I equals 0. Really the same thing we did down here. And then we can say platforms. We'll do the same thing we did before, which is create that variable for platforms I. This could be constant as well, because it won't change. And then we'll say platform dot move. We don't want to move it on the x-axis. We want to move it on the y-axis by 5. And now we should start to see the platforms move down. Spelled this wrong. Spelled one wrong again. Which one? This one. Now we see the platforms moving down. Now the problem is we eventually run out of platforms to jump onto, so what we'll do is once the platforms get below the screen, we'll just move them back to the top so that it almost seems like it's infinite. So if platform moves off screen, reposition to top. So to do that, we'll say if platform is greater, well, platform.getY is greater than floor underscore y, meaning he's off the screen, he's gone lower than the floor. Platform dot set position, and then we'll set it position the same way we did it earlier using that randomizer. You just copy that one because it's kind of long. Then paste that into here. But actually we don't need the spacing anymore. We can just say 0 because we want to make sure that we set it right at the top. Now if we jump, we get off screen, we see that that new one is positioned right at the top. And actually let's just use 50 to get that same amount of spacing that we had from before. Let's run it and we can see, okay, now we have good spacing and it looks like platforms are appearing forever. Next thing we'll do is the high score. So every time the screen scrolls, we want to see the high score go up a little bit. So that'll be our next function. So to do the scores, this will be pretty easy. We can just go to the same place where the screen starts to scroll. So where's that? Let's just look for it. Scroll screen. So we start scrolling the screen here. So what we can do is right underneath scroll screen, we can say current score, whatever the current score is, add 5 to it. And if my current score is higher than my high score, then we'll set it to that, the high score text to the current score. But if the high score is higher, we'll just leave the high score up there. So current score. And now let's try that. High score, we didn't capitalize the S. Yeah, and as it scrolls, we see the score going up and up and up. Okay, so now next thing we're gonna need to do is check to see if the game is over. So to do that, we're gonna need a few things. First thing we're gonna need is a check game over function, which is gonna be inside of the move up function. So we'll just put that underneath here, check game over. And then the check game over function we'll just check to see if he's fallen off the screen. So if Megaman dot get y is greater than or equal to floor underscore y, and he can die, and we need this can die piece to make sure it doesn't happen as soon as the game starts. So we forgot that when we scroll the screen, we want to turn can die on, or we can actually turn it on as soon as he jumps. So let's put it, where's the jump at? Not there, here. Same place where we turn gravity on, we should turn can die on. And honestly, those variables could probably be 1, but that's for optimization later. So now we have if he's touching or he's lower than the floor and he can die, then alert, game over. And then after the game is over, we can say if, we'll just say reset game. And we'll deal with reset game in a second. Let's make sure that game over works. So let's fall off the screen somewhere. Okay, and we got game over. Okay, so now we're almost finished. We just need to finish that one last function, reset game. And reset game is just going to, after the game's over, do a reset on everything so that we can play again. So reset game, first thing we'll do is we'll respawn Megaman. We can use the same function we used in the beginning. And we'll clean up all the platforms. So to do that, we'll have to loop through all of them. For variable equals I equals 0, I less than platforms dot length, I plus plus, remove platforms I, which will just remove all the platforms. And then we'll need to empty out that array as well so that we can use it again. And now we can make platforms, which will make us some new platforms just like in the beginning. And then reset all of our booleans. So can die equals false again, is gravity on equals false again. And then if current score is greater than the high score, then we want to set the high score to the current score. And then we'll set current score to 0. And that should be it. So let's run that. See, we got an error in here. We forgot our keyword function. But yeah, that should be it. Let's try it out. Now if we fall off the map, game over, we get that. Platforms is not defined. Of course, one last error. We spelled this wrong. So that's our game over, and now we have, looks like there's an error in our reset game function. And that's gonna be because we're putting Megaman.move after the game over check. So even though game is over, it still tries to move them a little bit at the end. So let's just put that up here. And also let's put this up here. Now, after the game is over, we see we get a reset. If we build up a high score of like, let's say 220, and then we die, we can start the game over. We still see our high score. And if we beat it, then we get our new high score up there. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Make sure to leave a comment about any videos you might want to see next. Thank you.